Hello and welcome to all participants from around the world to this exciting tutoring session today. So today we'll be continuing our Java programming series, and we'll be learning about some very crucial concepts, which is really important not just within the Java programming language, but in coding in general. And what we're going to be doing today is math with Java, but with other words, arithmetic and performing mathematical operations within Java and with Java programming. So let's get started with today's session. All right, so essentially previously, in previous Java sessions, we discussed about data and methods and really learned how to use those to make our code more effective and implement more time-consuming or less time-consuming strategies in order to really be able to optimize our code. And today we'll be carrying on that same concept today as well in order to perform our arithmetic math. And today I'm just going to be going over a few things that we learned about methods in our previous Java sessions, just to basically reiterate those concepts and make those a bit more clear and just refresh your memories as well. And basically what we're going to be doing with that information is we're just going to be carrying on those skills in today's session as well. And we're going to be using those ideas of methods and data in order to perform math with Java. And essentially, so just getting started with that, I want to first bring to everyone's attention returning and how to get data back from a method. So basically, as you can see, there is a photo attached here with return statements. So basically, this is depicting how you can return a value within a method. So this is how you can return values within a variable, which is the first line of code there, a value, which is return 20 over here, and a string, which is return a string of value. So essentially, that's what is going to be kind of the basis of our math operations today. That's how we're going to be actually computing our answers and getting our answers to our math equations. So essentially, these are really important to know. And it's really important to keep these in mind as we're going through today's session as well. So just continuing off of that, essentially this is how we can implement that same return statement I showed everyone in the previous slide into a method. So as you can see, this is getting data back from a method once again. And when a return statement is used in the method, this data type needs to be used in the method's definition. And we did learn about data types in our previous Java sessions in one of the previous parts of our Java session series. And basically, we learned about data types and what they are. So like char, boolean, string, basically the core data types and principles that Java utilizes to differentiate the values. So essentially what we have to do is when we call our method and put our return statement in our method, we have to be able to say or iterate the data type. So in this case, static data type and then method name. So we just have to put static and then the data type. And then of course, return your value. So essentially, also one important thing to keep in mind is if you're not returning any data type, instead of putting the data type, you would say void, which is also something we covered in our previous session. And just one more thing from our previous sessions, just to clarify and refresh your memories with these concepts. Basically, this is how we can use the variable to store the value returned from the method. So essentially, as you can see, we have the static integer and then we have the random num method. And basically what we're doing with that is we're just returning the value of 23. And then we're just using that variable to store the value. And that's basically what we're doing. So we're just storing the value in the variable, and then the number would be 3 or 23. So essentially, that's what the core idea of data and methods is and how we can actually use those into our math today. And don't worry if this seems a bit daunting right now. I'll definitely be going over many examples today and show you how this actually works in action in the code. And then hopefully by then the concepts will all be clarified. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be making a calculator. And this is really fitting with our topic today of math with Java. And basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating a calculator to basically compute numerous operations. So we're going to be learning how to do addition, multiplication, subtraction, division, the core of four mathematical or arithmetic operators today. So I'll just be going over here. So hopefully everyone can see the editor over here, and this is where we're going to be typing our code. So essentially with this, what's happening here is we did cover this in one of our previous Java sessions, but just to clarify, this is the public class, and I've just named the class calculator. So that's just the name of the class. And then over here we have our main method, so our public static void main method, and we have that main method over there, which is kind of the entry point and the main underlying structure of Java. So basically, I'll just comment that out. So basically, I created a class with a name calculator. And then this is just the main method. And just to clarify, that's what you have in Java for the entry point of your code, basically. So that's a good way to think of it. So essentially, what we're going to be doing here is we're just going to be using this structure and build upon it to compute some math operations. So this is the public class, obviously, and that was the main method. So now what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be going back over here. And basically, I'm going to be showing everyone this. So as I did mention a bit briefly before, we are going to be working with arithmetic operators. So doing things like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. So in order to actually perform those, though, we need to know the arithmetic operators within Java. So every single language has their own arithmetic operators. And for the most part, they are universal. So the plus sign will normally do addition for all programming languages, but there are a select few where it won't. But for Java, it will. So as you can see here, I've attached kind of like an image which depicts the four main arithmetic operators we're going to be using today. So that is the addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So in order to perform addition in Java, you just use the plus sign. In order to perform subtraction in Java, you use the minus sign over there. And then in order to perform multiplication, what we do is we usually use the asterisk. So if you do shift and then 8, then that's what you would get, and that's what you need to use for the multiplication. And then finally for division, we just use the slash, the forward slash, which is the symbol for division, or otherwise the arithmetic operator for division. So those are the operators that we're going to be using. And just to put it more into context for everyone, and just to show how this actually works in code, I've also demonstrated it here as well. So as you can see, all I've done is I said variable result. So I've just created a variable called result, and I've just said result is equal to 48 plus 12. So as you can see, the plus just depicts a addition operation. So basically this will perform addition. And the second one says result equals 48 minus 12. This will perform subtraction because there is a minus operator there. And then the third line, we have the result is equal to 48 divided by 12, and this will perform division. And then finally, it says result is equal to 48 and then the star 12, and then this performs multiplication. So it's a really good idea to keep these four key arithmetic operators in mind. These are just basically the core, and in a lot of more complex programming, if you want to do some more advanced programming as well, these are really, really good to keep in mind, as these are kind of like the core and basis for a lot of those advanced programs if you choose to create them. So I'll just leave that here for a bit and just kind of keep these in your mind and just think of these as we do our session today. So now I'll go back here and we're back here at the editor. So basically what we're going to do first is I want to show everyone how we can essentially add two numbers. So today we're going to be doing something called hard coding. And I did mention hard coding a bit before, but just to reiterate for those of you who need a refresher, hard coding is basically when the programmer, which is you the programmer, decide the values. So there's no user input, but you decide what values you want to put into the code. So essentially, I'm going to be using hard coding today to just show you guys the concepts and show you guys how the addition actually works, and also the other operations as well. So what we're going to do is we are going to be doing addition right now. So just showing you guys and just reiterating the fact that what we're going to be using today is methods. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a method called add. And basically what we're going to be doing inside this method add is we're just going to be adding two numbers, like I said before. So I'll be creating this method and I'll show everyone what this looks like. So basically you want to say static int add. And then we want the two integers. So we want int num1 and int num2. And then brackets, just following through with the structure. And that's essentially what we are going to do. So as you can see, there is a red line over here. Don't worry about that now. I'll explain why that was happening. But just for now, we'll just carry along with this process and we'll come back to that later. So essentially, this is basically creating the method. I'm sure many of you do already know how to do this. This was covered a bit before. So this is just the method that we've created to add two numbers. And I've just named the two numbers num1 and num2. And then basically inside this method, I'm going to store the result in a variable. So I'm going to go ahead and say int result is equal to num1 plus num2. And as you can see, this is where that arithmetic operator comes in place. You can see there's a plus sign that just denotes we want to perform addition. And that's where this arithmetic operator would be very, very useful for us because this is basically just the key component in order to add two numbers or just to add anything. So what we're going to do now is we're going to return that result. And now, if you actually see, if you were paying attention to that, when you return the result, that red line actually went away. So I'm just going to take that return off. And as you can see, the red line comes back. So the main reason for this, or actually the only reason why this is occurring, is because we do not return anything. So we have to be able to return the result which we computed, because the computer doesn't know what it's supposed to be displaying as an answer. So if we just ignore the return statement and we just leave it like this, it doesn't know what it's supposed to be returning as an answer to us. So that's why that return statement was really, really crucial to add. So always remember to return your result, return whatever you're trying to compute. So that was just the reasoning for that, and I just wanted to show everyone how that works. So basically now we have a lot of our structure for addition done. So what we're going to do now is we are actually going to actually get our two numbers that we're going to add. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, inside the main method, I'm going to say int sum is equal to, I'm going to say int sum is equal to add. And I'm just going to pick any two numbers that I want to add. So let's go with some fairly smaller numbers. So 10 and 20. 10 and 20. So we want to add 10 and 20, and don't forget that semicolon at the end because that's just kind of the structure of Java. Java does require you to put a semicolon after that. So what we did is I just called the method over here and I said int sum equals add, and then I just chose our two numbers that we're going to add. And then basically what I'm going to do now is I'm going to print that. So I'm going to say system.out.println uh, the value of 10 plus 20 is, and then I'm going to put in plus sum. And I'll just now go over everything that I just said. So basically, I basically printed our result here. So if we recall here in our method, we actually had two variables. So num1 and num2 is what we're trying to add. So we have static int add. I named the method add, and then basically I returned a result. So I said int result, which is what we want our computer to compute. We want our computer to be able to compute the result. So I said int result is equal to number 1 plus number 2. And then I want to return the result, return that result that the computer computed for me. And then basically over here, all I did is I just called that method over here, and I said int sum, which is the what we want to call this method, the sum, is equal to add. So I just called method add from here over here, and I said add 10 and 20. So basically what it does is it takes 10 as num1 and it takes 20 as num2. And then when we compute it and put this print statement over here, and I said the value of 10 plus 20 is, and then I use concatenation, which is basically concatenating a string and variable with a plus sign or putting those together. So I could use concatenation and I said value of 10 plus 20 is, and then it will display the sum, which is the variable or the method I had over here. And basically within that, what I did is basically now that that was there in the form of a print statement, the computer will know what to actually be able to compute and what to actually return to me as an answer. So basically, if we did this in our head right now, 10 plus 20 is 30. So the answer should be 30. Let's see if that happens. So I'll save this and I'm going to run this. All right, so run. And as you can see, it works perfectly. It says the value of 10 plus 20 is 30, and that's just what we wanted. We wanted to say 30. So that's great. We have exactly what we actually aimed to do within this addition method. And as you can see, we really did accomplish our goal in that way. So now that we know how to actually perform addition, let's go ahead and try to perform another arithmetic operation now. Let's see what we can do. So we already did addition, so let's do division now. So the process for division is the exact same as the process for addition. So exactly how we did it for addition, we just created a add method, and now we're just adding two numbers, and we just assigned it as num1 and num2, and then we just returned that value that the computer computes for us. And then basically what we did, we just created a sum variable, and then we called the method, and then we just used concatenation to print out our sum. And I'm just going to now carry on that exact same thing. So within that, what we're going to do is we're just going to now perform division. So let's see how we can do this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to be carrying on the exact same process here, and now I'm going to say so inside the main method, I'm going to be calling the divide function. I'm going to be printing the result of that divide function. So in order to actually call the divide function, we have to be able to, once again, use the static int method name, and we have to be able to actually be able to implement that in the same way we implemented the addition. So let's now create our method name again for division. So let's go static int divide. So now instead of add as method name, I'm going to say divide, because divide in this case makes sense because that's what we're trying to do. And also I'm just going to reiterate something that I've said a lot in past sessions as well, something that we should all keep in mind, which is to create appropriate method and variable names so you actually know what you're performing through them. So in this case, I am doing division. So divide would be a good method name to have. So basically inside our class, we're just going to create another method called divide with two integer parameters. And what that looks like is basically like this. So int num1 and int num2. Exactly how we did up there. As you can see, there's basically no changes. And now as you can see, that red line is appearing again. That's basically because we haven't returned a result. And that's just what happened in the above addition method as well. So now what we're going to do is we're going to, inside our method divide, we're going to store the result in an integer variable. So to do that, we're going to say int result is equal to num1 divided by num2. And now hopefully everyone can see the difference between this and this. So before we wanted to perform addition, so we had the plus arithmetic operator. Now we want to do division. So we have the slash arithmetic operator, which denotes division. So that's what we're doing right now. We're just providing or performing division in this way. And now what we're going to do is we're going to just return the result. So now just returning that, that's what we're going to be doing now. And as you can see, now that red line that you had originally here is no longer present because we did return the result, and now the computer knows what it's supposed to be computing for us. And now finally, if we just displayed it like this, as you can see, nothing really happens with the division because we didn't print anything. So exactly how we performed the print statement and concatenation up here, what we're going to do is do the same thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say int quotient, because that's what we're doing. This is a quotient that we want our computer to return back to us. So we're going to say int quotient is equal to divide, and I'm going to pick two numbers again. So let's go with 20 and 10. And then semicolon. And then essentially we're going to say system.out.println, and then we're going to say the value of 20 divided, or maybe we should just write it like this, value of 20 divided by 10 is, and then this, and then we're going to use concatenation by using a plus sign to concatenate the string and variable. So we're going to do that, and then plus quotient, then semicolon. So now as you can see, the structure looks the exact same. For the structure for addition, the structure for division, it all looks the exact same. There is not much change, or if not, there's not any change within how you would actually implement and write these. Basically just create the method, you return the result, and you just perform it with the arithmetic operator, and make sure to have your variable names. And then you just instantiate another variable, call your method, and then print that out. And now let's go test this. So let's save that and let's see. So as you can see, now it says the value of 20 divided by 10 is 2. And that's what we wanted. 20 divided by 10 is indeed 2. And as you can see, it now computes our arithmetic operations perfectly. So we've already done two operations here. We've done addition, we've done division. So now we're going to be jumping a bit, and we're going to be looking at something rather interesting. And this is how to calculate the average. So although average isn't one of those four main arithmetic operators I mentioned before, it is pretty easy to calculate the average because the average is just all the values added divided by how many they are. So although there isn't a specific arithmetic operator for average, we can still calculate the average by using um, either one or more of our four arithmetic operators. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be calculating the average in that way. So basically, we have computed those two basic, I guess, algebra problems, if you will, of addition and division. So we're going to now do that same thing that I just mentioned and write a method to calculate average. So inside our class, what we're basically going to do is we're going to be creating a average method, another method that is just specifically dedicated to calculating the average. And once again, like we did for the addition and division methods, we're going to be taking two integer parameters. So the parameters of num1 and num2 in integer form or in integer data type. So let's go ahead and do that. So we have static int, and let's name our method average because we are taking the average. And then we have int num1 and int num2. And as you can see, once again, you do see that red line underneath. And that's just, once again, due to us not returning anything. So we have to definitely include a return statement. And that's what we will be doing just right after we actually compute the average. And I'll show everyone how to actually compute average in this case. So basically, as I did mention before, we know that the average is going to be num1 plus num2 divided by 2. Because the average is just adding up all the values and then dividing that sum by how many values there are. So the two main arithmetic operators that we will need for this is addition as well as division in order to compute our average. So that's what we're going to be taking right now. So now rather than just having one arithmetic operator, we need two. So let's go ahead and do that. So in order to do this, we're just going to borrow what we did before, and we're just going to say int sum is equal to add num1 and num2. And basically what we're going to do there is this is what we had above. If you notice over here, we had int sum is equal to add 10, 20. So what we're going to do here is we just did the exact same thing. We took the variable sum, and within variable sum, we just use the add method. And instead of passing two actual numbers, we just pass the variables or parameters of num1 and num2. And now I'm just going to go ahead and do the exact same thing for division. So int quotient is equal to divide and then sum 2. Okay, so as you can see, this one is looking a bit different now. So I'll just go ahead and explain what this really means. So if we look at here at this line, we have int sum is equal to add num1, num2. So basically what this does is this adds num1 and num2. And what this does is it takes the sum of num1 and num2 and divides that sum by 2. And I'll just enter that here so see that a bit better. So what happens is this takes that sum that was added in the previous step, in the previous line, we added num1 and num2, and now what this does is, as you can see, the integer quotient, it divides because we did have our divide method here before. So it just takes that divide method that we instantiated here before, and it takes that and it divides the sum. The sum is what we had over here and what we created over here. So it divides the sum by 2. So the parameters passed are sum, which is calculated here, and the value 2, because we want to divide the sum by 2. So basically that's how you calculate average essentially. So we just have to add it and then divide it by 2 because there are only 2 values in this case. And then of course we have to return because that's the only way the computer knows what answer it's supposed to give us. So it returns, we want it to return the quotient because that's the final answer. Whatever's in here is the final answer. So it returns the quotient. And now essentially what occurs is we now need to actually print that out. So we have to put our system.out.println print statement as well as our instantiation over here as we did in our division and addition. So what we're going to do for that is we're going to say inside our main method int average, and I'm just going to use short form avg to denote average, is equal to average, which is the name of the method, and then int num1 and int num2. And basically that is just how we would instantiate, or we would call that method average into our main method. So basically, now as you can see, there is the int num1 and int num2. And as you can see, there is a red line underneath. And I'll tell everyone why in a moment. Because as you can see, we did pass the parameters of num1 and num2 down here, but it won't allow us to do that over here. And that's because we need to hard code the values and we have to tell it which values specifically we're calculating the average of. So let's go ahead and change those to actual numbers. So let's say just keep on with our trend of 20 and 10, and we'll just calculate the average of those values. And then we just have to print that out. So system.out.println, and then we want to print out the average of 20 and 10 is, and then one use concatenation plus the value of the average, and then we want the semicolon over there. So let's save this and let's look at the result. So let's run that. And now it says the average of 20 and 10 is 15. And that's perfect because 20 plus 10 is 30, and then 30 divided by 2 is 15. So that is indeed the average of these two numbers. And that's exactly what we wanted to have our computer compute for us. So essentially, what we're going to do now is we're going to just take a look at this, and we're just going to be analyzing this code for a bit. So I'll leave this up for a bit so everyone can take this in and really understand what we did here. And to make this a bit more clear, what I'll do is I'll actually provide comments on the sides so we kind of have a clear, more focused understanding of what each specific part of the code means, because all of these components which I've added here today are really important in order to actually be able to create this and create this effective code which will actually compute some arithmetical operations for you. So what I did here is I created an add method to add two numbers, and then created the variable int, or create a variable result rather, of type int. And then basically what we did is we created the variable result, and we know that the result is num1 plus num2. So what we did from there is we just returned the result that was computed above. So that's basically what we did there. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to be putting some comments over here. So I'm going to say we created a divide method of type int to add, or rather to divide actually this time, divide two numbers. And I'll comment these over here so it's a bit more clear for everyone. But essentially that's what we did there. And then what we did here is we just created variable results of type int to compute the division. And then we just return the result that was computed above. Okay, so essentially, I'm pretty sure you guys understand the pattern now. If you just, even without the comments, you just take a look and analyze each kind of section of the code, the structure is the exact same. There's the method that you create, the variable result that we to create, and the computation that we create as well over there. So basically now within this, what we're going to do is we're actually going to, all right, so we're over here now, and what we're going to be doing within this is we're actually going to just analyze the structure once again as we were just doing previously. And what we're going to do is we're going to analyze the structure that we had previously, and what we're going to do is we're just going to be able to look at this and look at the constant patterns which is showing up. So as you can see, there is this pattern that's repeating over and over again of the method, and then basically the variable that we create to actually perform the computations, and then actually the final results as well as we return that result. So that's essentially what we're going to be doing right now, and just going to give everyone a moment to analyze this and just really take a look um, of this as well, and just take a look at what we essentially did over here. All right. So essentially that's just what our idea was for today. Then that's how we just perform basic mathematical operations. And although this is just the first stepping stone, this is really, really important, especially when we consider more complex programs in the future. Everything kind of relies on this. So it's really important to solidify these ideas. And then I'll also continue to comment these out as everyone takes a look at this code, and just we're returning uh, the result that was computed above. All right, so basically this is what we did today. And finally what we did is we just created the variable sum and added two numbers. And I'm just going to be copying pasting that same statement to the other two variables as well. And just changing this to divide. And this is averaged. All right, so essentially that was just the main idea of this. And this is just how you perform those mathematical operations. So I do encourage you definitely to try the ones that we didn't do today out. So the ones that we didn't do are the subtraction and division, or subtraction and multiplication rather. And basically that's mainly because I would like you guys to try that out yourselves and see how it works out for you. And the idea and concepts and basically how to code that is the exact same as what we did today. There is basically no difference within those two things. Basically, it's the exact same thing, exact same process, exact same structure. It's just the static int, and then you get your method name, and then you just compute it using the arithmetical operators we discussed earlier on today. And then you want to return the result, and then definitely you want to be able to have a means to print that out and actually display the results properly as well. And that just using basically a print statement, and then we want to call that method that we called below. So call the method and then just create the variable with the called method. So yeah, basically that is the idea for this. So now if we go back over here, these are just once again the main arithmetic operators. And basically this is also kind of how we saw it in action. And if we go back here, what I put here and what I put here as well is basically over here is the exact same. So we want to create the result and we want to be able to compute it in a way. All right. So basically with that, we have actually reached an end of today's session. So basically in conclusion, we learned how to write methods to perform aspects like addition and division. And also we did a bit unique of an exercise as well by calculating the average of our two numbers, which is something that not only utilized one arithmetic operator, but actually two. And there are many more cases like that where you will need way more than one operator. So that's really important to keep in mind. And basically, now I encourage you guys to use the same process to perform subtraction and multiplication, which was two of the arithmetic operators that we didn't really do today in today's exercises. But as I mentioned previously, it's the exact same process, the exact same structure. All we do now is you create method names that make sense to subtraction and multiplication, and make sure to use the arithmetic, the designated arithmetic operators of subtraction and multiplication in order to carry that out, which is really important to use as well. And in addition to this, I also wanted to say that if you want to go ahead and challenge yourself a bit more, I encourage you to try out the average of four numbers rather than the average of two numbers. So today we did the average of two numbers, but if I go back here, this was the average of two numbers. But I would like you guys to go ahead and definitely try out the average of four numbers. And I'll give you guys a hint on how to get started on that. Basically, what you do is you want to be able to put in more parameters for your four numbers. So you have parameters for num1 and num2, but we now need the parameters for int num3 and int num4. So now we need all those parameters, and then when we add it, make sure you understand the definition of average and how that works. Basically, average is when you have to add all of your given values, and then you divide it by how many values there are. So basically, there are those four values. You want to be able to add all of those four values, and then you want to be able to divide that sum by how many numbers there were. So there are four numbers, so think about what you want to divide that whole sum by. So that's something that I encourage everyone to try out. And once again, the process is the exact same, but the only thing that differs a bit is the arithmetic operator and of course your method and variable names that you would need to change to adapt to the operation you're trying to perform. So with that, we've actually come to an end of today's Java tutoring session. And I really hope everyone enjoyed and was able to learn something new and interesting and useful about Java and specifically, of course, how to perform math with Java. And as I mentioned before, this is a Java series, and next part of this series will be mainly revolving around decision statements as well as complex decision statements and how we can actually use those in a variety of real life applications in order to really allow our computer to perform and compute various tasks. So please do check out our website that is displayed on the screen for more information on how to register for that. And with this, I'd also like to once again thank everyone for attending today's session. I really hope everyone enjoyed. And once again, going back to those problems that I proposed earlier of allowing you guys to actually be able to try the subtraction and multiplication as well as the average of four numbers. If you do need any help with that or need some more clarification on how to get that done, please do not hesitate to contact me as well. And just with this, on a final note, I'd like to thank everyone once again for joining today. Hope everyone was able to learn something cool about Java and math and arithmetic operators with Java. And I definitely do hope to see everyone in the next tutoring session as well. So once again, please don't hesitate to contact me if you have any questions with those problems. And I hope to see everyone in the next webinar. Thank you and have a great weekend.